The alarm screamed through every corner of station horizon. Red lights flashed in the hallways as people ran toward the emergency shuttles. Commander Lisa Morgan stood in the control room, her blue skin pale with worry. She was a species known for staying calm in danger, but today even she felt fear. "How many people are still inside?" she asked. 12 in the East Wing, Commander," her assistant said. "They're trying to reach the safe zone." Lisa nodded. She had seen this before. 3 months ago, a creature got into the station. 5 people died before they could kill it. 2 months before that, 7 more lost their lives. The creatures were called, and they were the most dangerous predators on planet. The station sat on the edge of a massive forest. Beyond the trees were caves that went deep into the ground. That was where they lived. They were huge, fast, and smart. Too smart. Their claws could cut through metal like it was paper. Their teeth could crush bone, and worst of all, they seemed to enjoy hunting. "We need to evacuate everyone," Ambassador said. He was a reptile-like species with green scales and cold yellow eyes. "Then we burn that section of the station. Kill the creature before it kills more of us." Lisa wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. The Galactic Council had made the rules clear. We're too dangerous to live near any settlement. If one got close, you killed it. No exceptions. "Wait," someone said. Everyone turned. A human walked into the control room. He was tall with brown hair and calm green eyes. He wore the uniform of a... "Who are you?" demanded. "Daniel Carter," the human said. "I just arrived on the supply ship. I'm here to study the local wildlife." "There's nothing to study," said. "Only a monster to kill." Daniel walked to the main screen. It showed Cargo Bay 7. In the corner, barely visible in the shadows, was the creature was huge, maybe 3 meters tall and 5 meters long. Its body was covered in black scales that seemed to absorb light. Its eyes glowed a soft blue in the darkness, and its claws, those terrible claws, hummed with a strange energy. "Have you tried talking to it?" Daniel asked. Laughed. "It was not a kind sound. Talk to it. It's an animal, a killer." "All animals communicate," Daniel said. He kept watching the screen. "Look at its breathing. See how fast its chest moves. It's scared." "Scared?" Lisa stepped closer. "That thing killed 3 researchers last year." "Because they cornered it," Daniel said. "Look at the way it's positioned. It's protecting something." Lisa looked at the screen again. It was pressed against the far wall of the cargo bay. Its body curved around a dark shape on the floor. "What is that?" she asked. Daniel zoomed in on the image. The dark shape was a pile of torn fabric and broken equipment. But underneath there was something else, something small and moving. "Bobby's," Daniel said quietly. "She's a mother." The control room went silent. Everyone stared at the screen. "That changes nothing," finally said. "Mother or not, it's too dangerous. We kill it now." "Give me 48 hours," Daniel said. What turned to face him? "Absolutely not." 48 hours to move her safely," Daniel continued. "If I fail, you can do whatever you want, but if I succeed, you save the station and no one else has to die." Lisa studied the human. She had worked with humans before. They were strange creatures. Their home planet Earth was considered a garden world by galactic standards, peaceful, safe. Yet humans had a reputation for doing impossible things. They took risks that no sane species would consider. "You'll die in there," Lisa said. "Maybe," Daniel agreed, "but maybe not. I've worked with dangerous predators before. Wolves, bears, big cats. I know how they think." "Those are Earth animals," said with disgust. They're nothing alike." "Predators are predators," Daniel said. "Fear makes them dangerous. Take away the fear and you can find understanding." Lisa wanted to say no. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was a terrible idea, but she looked at the screen again, at the mother creature protecting her young, at the fear in those glowing eyes. 48 hours, she said, "but you don't go in alone." "I'll go with him," another voice said. Brooks walked into the control room. He was human too, the head of station security. He was shorter than Daniel, but built like a tank, with scars on his face that spoke of old fights. "You don't have to do this," Lisa said. "Yes, I do," replied. "Someone needs to watch his back, even if I think this is crazy." Daniel smiled. "Fair enough." "This is insane," said. "I'm reporting this to the council." "You do that," Lisa said. "But until they override my command, this is still my station. Daniel gets his 48 hours." Scales darkened with anger, but he said nothing. He turned and left the control room. Lisa looked at Daniel. "What do you need?" "Information," Daniel said. "Everything you have on, videos, biological data, behavioral studies, anything." "Most of the researchers who studied them are dead," Lisa said quietly. "Then I'll work with what's left," Daniel replied. For the next 3 hours, Daniel sat in the station's library. He watched every video they had. Most were short clips of attacks, creatures leaping from shadows, claws flashing in the light, screams cut short, but Daniel watched them differently than others had. He didn't see monsters, he saw patterns. They never attacked without warning. They always gave signs first. A low growl, a flash of their eyes changing color from blue to red, the humming of their claws getting louder. These were not mindless killers. These were intelligent beings giving clear signals. "They're warning people to back off," Daniel said to who sat beside him. "And when people don't listen, they attack," said. "Exactly," Daniel nodded. "They're defending territory, protecting their young, just like any other predator." "So how do we not get killed?" asked. "We respect her space," Daniel said. "We move slow, we let her see that we're not a threat." Laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You make it sound easy." "It won't be," Daniel admitted. "But it's possible. I've seen the footage. She's injured. See that mark on her left side? Something attacked her, probably another fighting for territory. She ran into the station looking for safety. And trapped herself in the cargo bay," finished. "Which means she's desperate," Daniel said. "Desperate and scared, that makes her more dangerous but also more willing to accept help." They stood up. It was time. The cargo bay doors were sealed. Armed guards stood on both sides. They looked at Daniel like he was walking to his death. Maybe he was. "Last chance to change your mind," said. Daniel took a deep breath. His heart was beating fast, but his hands were steady. "Open the door," he said. The door slid open with a hiss. The cargo bay was dark except for emergency lights. Daniel stepped inside, followed, his weapon ready but pointed at the ground. That was exactly where the cameras showed her. She lifted her massive head and looked at them. Her eyes changed from blue to yellow, a warning. Her claws began to hum louder. Daniel stopped walking. He slowly sat down on the floor about 10 meters from the creature. He set down his bag and pulled out a small device, a recorder. "What are you doing?" whispered. "Starting a conversation," Daniel said. He pressed a button. The recorder began to play soft sounds, low tones that rose and fell in a pattern. Daniel had created them based on the vocalizations he heard in the videos. He didn't know if they meant anything but he had to try. The creature tilted her head. Her eyes shifted from yellow to green. The humming of her claws got quiet. 24 hours had passed since Daniel entered the cargo bay. He had not left once. Brought him food and water every few hours, but Daniel barely ate. His focus was completely on the creature he had named Shadow. Shadow had not moved much. She stayed in her corner, curled around her young, but her eyes followed Daniel everywhere. At first they had been yellow, the color of warning, then green, the color of curiosity. Now they were a soft purple that Daniel had not seen in any of the videos. "What does purple mean?" asked through the comm system. He was outside the cargo bay, watching through cameras. "I don't know yet," Daniel said quietly. He sat cross-legged on the floor, his recorder playing soft sounds. "But she's not aggressive, that's progress." In the control room, Lisa watched the same camera feeds. Ambassador stood beside her, his arms crossed. 30 hours left, said. Then I'm sending in my troops. He's making progress, Lisa said. He's wasting time, replied. That creature is dangerous. Every moment it lives puts this station at risk. Lisa did not answer. She kept watching Daniel on the screen. The human was doing something no one else had tried. He was being patient. Inside the cargo bay, Daniel made a decision. He reached into his bag and pulled out a package. Raw protein, synthesized to match the chemical makeup of wildlife. He had ordered it specially from the station's food processors. Slowly, very slowly, he stood up. Shadow's eyes immediately shifted from purple to yellow. Her claws began to hum. Daniel froze. Easy, he said softly. I'm not a threat, just bringing you food. He took one step forward. Shadow's eyes went orange. Daniel had seen that color once in the videos right before an attack. He stopped moving. Okay, he said. Too close, I understand. He set the package on the floor and walked backward to his original spot. Then he sat down again. Shadow watched him for a long moment. Her eyes slowly faded from orange back to yellow, then to purple again. Minutes passed, maybe an hour. Daniel did not check his watch, he just waited. Finally, Shadow moved. She uncurled her body slightly and reached out with one massive claw. The claw hooked the package and dragged it toward her. She sniffed it carefully, then tore it open. She ate quickly, her eyes never leaving Daniel. "She took the food," said over the comm. "That's good, right?" "Very good," Daniel said. A smile crossed his face. "She's starting to trust." But food was only the first step. Daniel needed to understand her language. He spent the next hours watching every movement Shadow made. The way her claws changed their humming pitch. The colors her eyes shifted through. The small sounds she made in her throat. He started to see patterns. When her claws hummed low and steady, she was calm. When they hummed high and sharp, she was alert. When they stopped humming completely, she was about to strike. Her eyes told even more. Blue meant neutral, purple meant curious, yellow was caution, orange was anger, red, which he had not seen yet, probably meant attack. "She's not just an animal," Daniel said into his recorder. "She's communicating constantly, we just never learned to listen." A sound came from Shadow's corner, a high-pitched chirp almost like a bird. Daniel sat up. That sound did not come from Shadow, it came from the small shapes beneath her. "The bobbies are awake," Daniel said. Through the shadows, he saw movement. 3 small shapes crawled out from under Shadow's protective curl. They were tiny compared to their mother, maybe the size of a large dog. Their scales were lighter, more gray than black. Their eyes glowed a bright, innocent blue. Shadow watched them carefully. One of the bobbies wandered too far, getting close to the edge of their safe area. Shadow made a low, rumbling sound. The baby immediately turned around and went back. "Just like a mother correcting her child," Daniel said quietly. "Are you seeing this?" "Yeah's voice came back. "I see it, sees it too, he doesn't care." Daniel frowned. He looked up at the camera. "Ambassador, if you're watching, these are not monsters. They're a family, a mother protecting her children. That's something every species understands." There was no response, but Daniel knew was listening. Hours passed. Daniel played his sounds. Shadow listened. The bobbies played in their corner, tackling each other like puppies. It was almost peaceful. Then something changed. Shadow's eyes suddenly flashed red. Her claws began to hum so loudly that Daniel could feel it in his chest. She pulled her bobbies close and faced the far wall of the cargo bay. "Daniel, get out of there," said urgently. "Something's wrong." "No, wait," Daniel said. He looked where Shadow was looking. "She's not afraid of me, she's afraid of something else." A scratching sound came from the walls, then a bang, then another. Something was trying to get into the cargo bay from the outside. "We've got movement in the ventilation system," Lisa's voice came over the comm. "Multiple heat signatures, small ones." "The bobbies," Daniel said suddenly. "Shadow's not the only one who got into the station. Her other bobbies are lost in the vents." "How many?" Lisa asked. "I don't know," Daniel said, "but Shadow knows they're there. Listen to her." Shadow was making sounds Daniel had never heard before. Long, low calls that echoed through the cargo bay. She was calling to her missing children. And from the vents there were answers, small, frightened chirps. "They're scared," Daniel said. "They're lost and scared, and their mother can't reach them." "We need to get them out," said. "If they stay in the vents, they'll die. There's no food in there." "Or they'll find a way into the inhabited sections of the station," said coldly. "And then we'll have running through the hallways. This is exactly why these creatures must be eliminated." "No," Daniel said firmly. "This is exactly why we need to help them. Ambassador, these bobbies are separated from their mother. They're not attacking anyone. They're just trying to survive." "I don't care," said. "You have 12 hours left, human, then I'm ending this." The comm went silent. Daniel looked at Shadow. She was staring at him with those red eyes, but there was something else in them now, something that looked almost like pleading. "I'll find them," Daniel said to her. "I'll bring your bobbies back to you." He stood up slowly. Shadow's eyes tracked him but did not change color. She understood. Somehow she understood. Daniel walked to the cargo bay door. It opened and he stepped out, was waiting for him. "You really think you can find them?" asked. "I have to try," Daniel said. "Shadow trusted me with her location. Now I need to trust that she won't attack when I bring her children back." They went to the control room. Lisa had maps of the ventilation system displayed on the screens. Red dots showed where the heat signatures were. 3 of them, Lisa said, all in the east section near the research labs. How do we get them out without getting killed? Asked. Daniel studied the maps. We don't chase them, we guide them. Shadow is calling to them. If we can open a path from where they are to the cargo bay, they'll follow their mother's voice. And if they attack us instead? Asked. They won't, Daniel said. They're bobbies, scared bobbies. They want their mother, not a fight. Lisa made a decision. Do it, but take a full security team. If anything goes wrong, we shut the vents and contain them. For the next 4 hours, Daniel and worked through the station. They opened vent covers, creating a path. They set up cameras to track the bobbies' movements. And all the while, Shadow kept calling from the cargo bay. Her voice echoed through the vents like a beacon. The bobbies responded. Slowly, carefully, they began to move, following the sound of their mother, following the path Daniel had created. Dr. Helen Price, a human ethologist who had been watching everything, joined Daniel in the hallway outside the cargo bay. This is remarkable, she said. No one has ever gotten this close to understanding. That's because everyone tried to study them like monsters, Daniel said, not like intelligent beings. The first baby appeared at the vent opening near the cargo bay. It was small and frightened, its scales trembling. It saw Daniel and hissed, showing tiny, sharp teeth. It's okay, Daniel said softly. Your mother is right through that door. Listen, can you hear her? Shadow's calls grew louder. The baby tilted its head, listening. Then it jumped down from the vent and ran straight to the cargo bay door. Open it, Daniel said. The door slid open. The baby rushed inside. Shadow's cry of joy was almost human in its emotion. She nuzzled her returned child, checking it for injuries. One by one, the other 2 bobbies came. One was bolder, jumping down and running to the door without hesitation. The last one was injured, limping on one leg. Daniel carefully picked it up. It struggled at first, but Daniel held it gently. I know it hurts, he said, but your mother will make it better. He carried the baby to the cargo bay door. Shadow saw him holding her child. Her eyes flashed red for a moment. Every muscle in her body tensed. Her claws hummed so loudly that the floor vibrated. This was the moment of truth. Daniel took a step forward into the cargo bay, holding the injured baby. Here, he said to Shadow, your child's safe. He set the baby down on the floor. It limped toward its mother. Shadow reached out with one massive claw and gently pulled her baby close. Then she looked at Daniel. Her eyes were no longer red. They were a color he had never seen before, a soft, warm gold. Daniel stepped back slowly. He left the cargo bay and the door closed behind him. His hands were shaking, grabbed his shoulder. You did it, said. All her bobbies are safe. In the control room, the entire staff watched in silence. Even Ambassador had nothing to say. 3 days had passed since Shadow was reunited with all her bobbies. Daniel continued his work in the cargo bay, spending hours each day with the family. He no longer sat at the far end of the bay. Now he sat just a few meters from Shadow, close enough to see the details of her scales, close enough to hear her breathing. The change was remarkable. Shadow allowed Daniel to approach her bobbies. The young ones were curious about the human, sniffing his hands and making soft, chirping sounds. Shadow watched carefully but did not interfere. She had learned that Daniel meant no harm. Can you believe this? Dr. Helen Price stood outside the cargo bay with Lisa, watching through the observation window. Allowing a human to interact with her offspring, this changes everything we thought we knew. It changes what we thought we knew about one, Lisa corrected. We still don't know if others would react the same way. Only one way to find out, Helen said. We need to expand this research, document everything Daniel is doing. But not everyone was happy with Daniel's progress. Ambassador had spent the last 3 days filing complaints with the Galactic Council. He argued that Daniel's work was dangerous and violated safety protocols. He demanded that Shadow and her bobbies be removed from the station immediately. On the 4th day, a ship arrived. It carried 6 galactic enforcement officers, all wearing heavy armor and carrying weapons designed to kill large predators. Their leader was a tall, named Commander Dax. Where is the creature? Dax asked as soon as he stepped off the ship. In Cargo Bay 7, Lisa said. But you can't go in there. We have a researcher working with her. Working with her? Dax's eyes narrowed. Ambassador said you were harboring a dangerous predator. He made no mention of research. That's because Ambassador doesn't care about the truth, Daniel said. He had come to the landing bay to meet the new arrivals. He only cares about following old rules that don't make sense anymore. Dax looked Daniel up and down. You're the human everyone is talking about. Daniel Carter, Daniel said, holding out his hand. Dax did not shake it. I've been ordered to assess the situation and, if necessary, terminate the creature. Stand aside. No, Daniel said simply. That wasn't a request, Dax said. Stepped up beside Daniel. Behind them, more station security personnel appeared. All of them were human. You're not touching that, said quietly. Not while we're here. Dax's hand moved toward his weapon. The other enforcement officers did the same. The tension in the landing bay was thick enough to cut. Stop, Lisa said. She stepped between the two groups. Everyone just stop. Commander Dax, I understand you have orders, but this is still my station. Let me show you what we've discovered before you make any decisions. Dax considered this. Finally, he nodded. Show me. They went to the observation window outside Cargo Bay 7. Dax and his team looked inside. Shadow was lying on her side while her 4 bobbies climbed over her. They played with her tail, nipped at her ears, and tumbled over each other. Shadow watched them with what could only be described as affection, her eyes a peaceful blue. That's the deadly predator, one of Dax's officers asked. That's a mother with her children, Daniel said. Watch. He entered the cargo bay. Shadow's eyes shifted to purple when she saw him. The bobbies immediately ran toward Daniel, chirping excitedly. He sat down and they swarmed him, climbing into his lap, touching his face with their small claws. Shadow stood up and walked over. She was massive, towering over Daniel. Her shadow covered him completely. Then very gently she lowered her head and touched her nose to Daniel's shoulder, a gesture of greeting, of trust. Impossible, Dax whispered. Not impossible, Helen said. She had joined them at the window. Just never attempted. Humans have a saying, never say never. They have a gift for proving the impossible is actually quite possible. Daniel spent the next hour demonstrating what he had learned. He showed how Shadow communicated through eye color and claw humming. He showed how she responded to specific sounds and gestures. He showed how intelligent she was, solving simple puzzles to get food, teaching her bobbies by example. She's not a mindless killer, Daniel said. She's a sentient being. She deserves to be treated as one. Dax watched everything in silence. Finally, he spoke. What you've done here is impressive, human, but it doesn't change the larger problem. There are hundreds in the caves around this station. We can't assume they're all like this one. You're right, Daniel said, but we also can't assume they're all violent. Shadow only attacked because people threatened her bobbies. Most animal attacks happen for the same reason. Fear, protection, survival. Take away those threats and you take away the violence. Theory is nice, Dax said, but I need proof. As if the universe wanted to provide it, an alarm suddenly blared through the station. Emergency in Section 4, a voice said over the intercom. Geological survey team reporting cave collapse, multiple personnel trapped. Lisa ran to the nearest console. How many? 4 people, the voice replied. They went into the northern cave system for mineral samples. The tunnel collapsed behind them. They're trapped in an air pocket, but it won't last long. Toxic gas is seeping in from the lower caves. Send in rescue teams, Lisa ordered. We can't, the voice said. The tunnel is too unstable. Any heavy equipment will cause another collapse, and the gas is already at dangerous levels. Our teams can't go in without full environmental suits, which will take hours to prepare. Daniel's mind was racing. What kind of gas? Sulfur dioxide mixed with methane, the voice said. Lethal to most species in high concentrations. But not to, Daniel said quietly. He looked at Shadow through the observation window. They live in those caves. They breathe that air every day. They're immune to it. Everyone turned to look at him. What are you suggesting? Lisa asked. I'm suggesting we ask for help, Daniel said. Shadow knows those caves. She can navigate them in the dark, and the gas won't hurt her. You want to use that to rescue people? Dax said. That's insane. No more insane than everything else I've done, Daniel replied. But I need to ask her first. I won't force her to do anything. He entered the cargo bay. Shadow immediately came to him, her eyes shifting to purple. Daniel placed his hand on the console in the bay and pulled up a map of the caves. He pointed to the location where the survey team was trapped. "People are stuck here," he said to Shadow. He pointed to a video feed showing the trapped team. 4 aliens huddled together in a small cave, their faces covered with cloth to filter the gas. "They need help. The gas will kill them if we don't get them out." Shadow looked at the screen. Her eyes shifted through several colors. Blue, purple, yellow, green. Daniel did not know what she was thinking. Then she looked down at her bobbies. They were playing nearby, safe and content. She looked back at Daniel. Her eyes turned gold. She understood. These people needed help the same way her bobbies had needed help, and Daniel was asking if she would return the favor. Shadow made a low rumbling sound. Then she walked to the cargo bay door. "She's going to help," Daniel said over the comm. "Open the door." "Daniel, are you sure about this?" Lisa asked. "No," Daniel admitted, "but those people will die if we do nothing. Shadow is their only chance." The cargo bay door opened. Shadow walked out into the corridor. Station personnel scattered, pressing themselves against the walls. They had never seen outside of a cage or a video feed. She was even more frightening in person. But Shadow did not attack. She simply stood there waiting for Daniel. "I'm going with her," Daniel said. "Like hell you are," said. "I'm coming too." "Me three," Dax said. Everyone looked at him in surprise. He shrugged. "If this works, I need to see it for myself. If it doesn't, you'll need someone who can actually fight this thing." They gathered supplies, rope, medical equipment, lights. Then they headed for the northern entrance to the cave system. Shadow led the way, moving with grace despite her size. People stared as the group passed. A human walking beside a like it was the most normal thing in the world. At the cave entrance, Shadow stopped. She looked at Daniel and made a questioning sound. "Yes," Daniel said, "we're going in together." The cave was dark. Their lights could only penetrate a few meters, but Shadow did not need light. Her eyes shifted to a deep purple and began to glow brighter. She could see in the dark. She moved forward, her claws finding purchase on the rough stone. Daniel and Dax followed. The cave twisted and turned, going deeper and deeper. Soon they could smell the gas. It stung their eyes and burned their throats. "Put on your masks," Dax ordered. They pulled breathing masks over their faces. Shadow showed no reaction to the gas. She breathed it like it was fresh air. They walked for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. The cave grew narrower. In some places, they had to crawl. Shadow moved through it all effortlessly, sometimes using her claws to climb vertical sections. Then they heard voices, weak, frightened voices calling for help. Shadow let out a loud call. Her voice echoed through the caves. The calling stopped, replaced by terrified silence. "It's okay," Daniel shouted. "We're here to help, don't be afraid." They rounded a corner and found the survey team. 3 and 1 all huddled in a small chamber. They saw Shadow and screamed. "Monster, it's going to kill us." He scrambled backward, his movement causing rocks to shift. A section of the cave ceiling cracked. "Don't move," Dax shouted. "The cave is unstable." But there was too frightened to listen. He kept backing away. More rocks fell. The crack in the ceiling grew wider. Shadow moved faster than Daniel had ever seen. She leaped forward, positioning her body over the survey team. Rocks fell, heavy chunks of stone that would have crushed them. They hit Shadow instead, bouncing off her tough scales. The cave shook. More rocks fell. Shadow's claws hummed loudly as she pressed them against the ceiling, holding it up through sheer strength. Her eyes flashed red with the effort. "We need to get them out now," yelled. Daniel and Dax grabbed the survey team members and pulled them toward the tunnel they had come from. There was last, frozen with fear. Daniel had to physically drag him. "Move," Daniel shouted. "She's saving your life." They ran. Behind them, Shadow slowly backed away from the collapsing chamber, still using her claws to slow the cave-in. Rocks crashed down around her. One struck her shoulder, drawing black blood. But she did not stop. She kept moving backward, leading them toward safety, using her body as a shield. They burst out of the cave entrance into the light. The survey team collapsed on the ground, gasping for clean air. Behind them, they heard the thunder of the final collapse. The tunnel was completely sealed now. The medical bay was full of activity. The 4 rescued survey team members were being treated for gas exposure and minor injuries. Shadow had been offered medical attention too, but she had refused to leave the cargo bay. Her bobbies needed her. Instead, Daniel treated her wounds himself. He cleaned the cuts on her shoulder where the rocks had hit her. Shadow sat perfectly still, her eyes a calm blue, trusting him completely. "You saved them," Daniel said softly as he worked. "4 people who were terrified of you, and you saved them anyway." Shadow made a low rumbling sound. One of her bobbies climbed onto her back, concerned about the injury. She reached around with her tail and gently pulled the baby close, reassuring it. In the medical bay, the survey team member named Vex sat on a bed, staring at his hands. They were still shaking. Dax stood beside him. "Tell me what you saw," Dax said. "I saw a monster become a hero," Vex said quietly. "I panicked. My fear almost killed everyone, and that creature, the one I thought would eat us, she protected us. She held up the ceiling while we escaped. Why would she do that?" "Because someone asked her to help," Dax said, "and she chose to do it." Across the station, in the communication center, Ambassador was watching a recording of the rescue. His face was unreadable, but his hands gripped the armrests of his chair tightly. "This changes nothing," he said. "With respect, Ambassador, it changes everything," Lisa said. She stood across from him, her arms crossed. "Shadow proved that can work with us, that they're intelligent, compassionate beings." One said, there are hundreds more in those caves. What about them?" "What about them?" Daniel walked into the room. He had finished treating Shadow and come to join the discussion. "Why don't we try talking to them instead of assuming they're all killers?" "Because the Galactic Council has studied for years," said. "They're classified as dangerous predators. That classification was made based on evidence human, based on attacks." "Based on misunderstanding," Daniel replied. "Every attack you've documented happened because someone threatened a first. You corner a mother protecting her young, she's going to fight back. You invade their territory, they're going to defend it. That's not evil, that's survival." Stood up, "I will not debate this with you. I'm calling for a formal Galactic Council review. They will send representatives here to assess the situation." "Good," Daniel said. "Let them come, let them see what I've seen, let them meet Shadow." "They will not be as easily swayed as Commander Dax," warned. "Then I'll just have to show them something they can't ignore," Daniel said. 3 days later, the council ship arrived. It carried 5 representatives from different species, all high-ranking members of the Galactic Council. They were led by Ambassador, and known for her fairness but also her strict adherence to council law. The representatives gathered in the station's main conference room. Shadow was brought in, along with her 4 bobbies. The council members visibly tensed when they saw her. "She's restrained?" Ambassador asked. "No," Daniel said. "She's here by choice." Shadow sat in the center of the room, her bobbies playing around her feet. Her eyes were a calm purple as she looked at each council member in turn. "Impossible," one representative said. "Cannot be domesticated." "She's not domesticated," Daniel said. "She's cooperating, there's a difference. Domestication takes generations. Shadow chose to work with us in just a few weeks." "Show us," Ambassador said. Daniel spent the next hour demonstrating everything Shadow had learned. He showed her communication methods. He showed how she responded to commands, not out of fear, but out of understanding. He showed videos of the rescue mission, of Shadow risking her life for strangers. The council members watched in silence. When Daniel finished, Ambassador spoke. "This is remarkable, Mr. Carter, but I have concerns. You've worked with one very specific individual who had young to protect. How do we know other would respond the same way?" "We don't," Daniel admitted. "Not yet, but we won't know unless we try. Shadow can help with that." "How?" asked. Daniel looked at Shadow. "Shadow can communicate with other. She can introduce us to her kind, show them that we're not enemies. If she vouches for us, they might listen." "And if they don't?" asked. "If they attack?" "Then we retreat," Daniel said. "But I don't think they will. Shadow's behavior suggests that are social creatures. They have communities, families. If we approach them with respect, they'll respond in kind." Ambassador considered this. "You're asking us to risk lives based on a theory." "No," Daniel said. "I'm asking you to give peace a chance before choosing violence. Isn't that what the Galactic Council stands for? Understanding before conflict." The words hung in the air, looked at her fellow council members, then back at Daniel. "We will observe one attempt," she said. "You may try to contact other with Shadow's help, but at the first sign of danger we evacuate. Understood?" Understood, Daniel said. 2 days later, Daniel, Shadow, and a small team prepared to enter the deep caves. The team included Dr. Helen Price and, surprisingly, Vex, that had requested to come. Why, Daniel had asked him. Because I need to face my fear, Vex said. Shadow saved my life. The least I can do is help you save her species. They entered the caves at dawn. Shadow led the way, moving deeper than they had gone during the rescue. The tunnels here were ancient, carved by water over thousands of years. Strange crystals grew on the walls, giving off a faint blue light. After an hour of walking, Shadow stopped. She made a long, low call that echoed through the caves. Then she waited. For several minutes there was no response. Then, from deeper in the caves, came an answering call, different from Shadow's but similar. There's someone else down here, Helen whispered. Shadow called again. This time multiple voices answered. They were coming closer. Get ready, said, his hand moving toward his weapon. No weapons, Daniel said firmly. Show fear and they'll respond with aggression. Stay calm. From the darkness ahead, shapes began to emerge. 4 adult, each as large as Shadow. Their eyes glowed in the dim light, assessing the strangers. Shadow walked forward to meet them. She made a series of sounds, her claws humming in complex patterns. The other listened. One of them, slightly larger than the others, stepped forward. This one's scales were darker, almost pure black. The Dark and Shadow touched noses, a greeting Daniel had seen Shadow use with her bobbies. They communicated through sounds and gestures for several minutes. What are they saying? Vex whispered. I'm not sure, Daniel said, but it looks like Shadow is explaining who we are. The Dark turned to look at the humans. His eyes were yellow, cautious. He took a step toward them. Tensed, but Daniel placed a hand on his arm. Stay calm, Daniel said. They came closer until he was just a meter from Daniel. This close, Daniel could see every detail, the scars on his scales from past fights, the intelligence in his eyes, the power in his muscles. They leaned forward and sniffed Daniel. Then he made a sound, somewhere between a growl and a purr. He looked back at Shadow. Shadow made a reassuring sound. The Dark's eyes shifted from yellow to purple. He's accepting us, Helen said in amazement. Shadow convinced him we're safe. The other 3 came forward one by one. Each sniffed the humans, assessing them. Each received reassurance from Shadow. Slowly, their eyes all shifted to purple. Then something happened that none of them expected. From even deeper in the caves came the sounds of many, dozens, maybe hundreds of voices calling out. Shadow and the 4 adult called back, an invitation. Within minutes, the chamber was full of adults and juveniles, all gathered around the small group of humans. They did not attack. They were curious, watching the strangers with those glowing eyes. There must be 50 of them, Vex said, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. 63, Helen said, counting rapidly. This is incredible. We're seeing a community. This has never been documented. Daniel slowly reached into his pack. Every eye followed his movement. He pulled out packages of the protein food. He set them on the ground. A gift, he said, from us to you. Shadow made a sound. Several of them came forward and took the food packages. They opened them carefully, sniffed the contents, then ate. More came forward, accepting the offering. The Dark, who seemed to be the leader, came to Daniel again. This time, he did something that made everyone hold their breath. He extended one massive claw toward Daniel. He's going to attack, said. No, Daniel said quietly. He's offering a greeting. Daniel slowly raised his hand. This claw was as long as Daniel's forearm, sharp enough to cut through bone. But that was careful. He gently touched the tip of his claw to Daniel's palm. The gesture was clear, acceptance, trust. All around them, others began to approach the humans, offering the same greeting. Helen, and even Vex touched claws with creatures that days ago they would have run from in terror. We need to record this, Helen said, tears in her eyes. The council needs to see this. They spent hours in the caves. They showed them their home, underground pools where they drank, chambers where they raised their young, even a place that looked like a gathering area where the community met. They have a civilization, Helen said. Not like ours, but it's there, social structures, shared responsibilities, culture. As they prepared to leave, Shadow's bobbies played with some of the juvenile. The young ones tackled each other, making happy chirping sounds. The adult watched with what could only be described as affection. The dark approached Daniel one more time. He made a sound and gestured toward the cave entrance. "I think he's saying we're welcome to come back," Daniel said. Shadow confirmed this with her own sound. They left the caves as the sun was setting. Behind them, dozens of stood at the cave entrance watching them go, not with hostility, with hope. Back at the station, the council representatives watched the footage of the encounter. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Ambassador broke the silence. "I was wrong," she said simply. "We were all wrong. These creatures are not monsters, they're people, different from us, but people nonetheless." "They deserve protection," another representative said, "not extermination." Ambassador sat in the corner, his face tight, but even he could not argue against what they had all witnessed. "The council will need to vote," said, "but I will recommend immediate reclassification, should be recognized as a sentient species with full galactic protection." Daniel looked at Shadow, who sat peacefully with her bobbies. She seemed to understand that something important had just happened. Her eyes were gold. "Thank you," Vex said to Daniel, "for showing us the truth." 3 weeks had passed since the Galactic Council representatives witnessed the community. In that time, Station Horizon had transformed from a place of fear into a place of hope. The Galactic Council had voted. The vote was not even close. Were now officially recognized as a sentient species. They were granted full protection under galactic law. No one could hunt them, harm them, or force them from their home world. The news spread across the galaxy, and scientists from dozens of species requested permission to come study the remarkable creatures. But Daniel had insisted on strict rules. They were not experiments. They were partners. Anyone who wanted to work with them had to earn their trust, just as he had earned Shadow's. The station itself had changed. The cargo bay where Shadow first stayed was now a dedicated habitat, but Shadow rarely used it anymore. She and her bobbies spent most of their time in the caves, coming to the station only to visit Daniel and the other humans who had become their friends. Dr. Helen Price had set up a research center. She worked with a team of 5 other scientists, documenting language, social structures, and culture. What they discovered was amazing. Had a complex society. The Dark who first accepted Daniel was named Striker by the humans. He was the leader of his clan, one of 7 clans that lived in the caves around Station Horizon. Each clan had its own territory, but they came together for important decisions. They shared food during hard times. They helped raise each other's young. They even had something like art, creating patterns in the cave walls with their claws. "They're not so different from us," Helen said one day as she watched a group of young playing. "They value family, they value community, they value loyalty, the same things most sentient species value." Had become the liaison between station security and the... He worked with Stryker to establish boundaries and protocols, where humans could go, where preferred to be left alone, how to signal if there was danger. "It's weird," said to Daniel one evening. "A month ago I was ready to shoot these things on sight. Now I'm having dinner with Stryker's family." It was true. They had started joining humans for meals. They sat together in the station's common areas, sharing food and stories. The humans learned to understand communication. They learned basic human gestures and words. Vex, the who had been saved by Shadow, had become one of the most dedicated advocates for. He spent hours each day in the caves, learning their ways. He even convinced others to visit, helping them overcome their species' fear of the creatures. "Fear is easy," Vex told a group of new arrivals. "Understanding takes work, but the work is worth it." Commander Lisa Morgan watched all of this with quiet satisfaction. Her station had gone from a dangerous outpost to a symbol of cooperation. The Galactic Council was considering making Station Horizon the official embassy for human relations. But not everyone was happy with the changes. Ambassador had left the station shortly after the council vote. Before he left, he spoke with Daniel one last time. "You've made your point, human," said. "The council has accepted these creatures as sentient, but don't think this means all dangerous species deserve the same treatment. Some things are too dangerous to trust." "Maybe," Daniel said. "Or maybe they just need someone willing to try, someone who sees beyond their claws and teeth to what's underneath." Shook his head. "Your optimism will get you killed one day." "Maybe," Daniel said again, "but I'd rather die trying to build bridges than live in fear behind walls." Had no response to that. He left without another word. Now, 3 weeks later, Daniel sat in the caves with Shadow and her family. The Bobbies had grown. They were nearly half their mother's size now, strong and confident. They played with human children who had come to the station with their families. The sight of young and human young playing together had become normal. Shadow lay beside Daniel, her eyes a peaceful blue. She made soft sounds, almost like purring. "Happy?" Daniel asked her. Shadow touched her nose to his hand. "Yes." Helen joined them, carrying a data pad. "The Science Council wants to send a delegation. They want to learn from the about cave navigation. Apparently, there are valuable minerals in deep cave systems across the galaxy, but most species can't access them safely." "What do you think?" Daniel asked Shadow. "Want to teach people about your home?" Shadow made a considering sound. Then she stood up and walked to the entrance of the chamber. She called out, her voice echoing through the caves. Within minutes, Stryker and several other adults arrived. They communicated for several minutes. Daniel watched, understanding some of it now. Shadow was explaining the request. Stryker was asking questions. The other were offering opinions. Finally, Stryker turned to Daniel. He made a gesture with his claws that Daniel had learned meant agreement. "They'll help," Daniel said to Helen, "but they want something in return." "What?" Helen asked. Stryker made more gestures. Shadow helped explain. "They want teachers," Daniel said. "They want to learn about technology, about the galaxy beyond their world. They want to understand the universe their children will grow up in." Helen smiled. "I think we can arrange that." Over the next months, Station Horizon became something unprecedented in galactic history. It was a true partnership between humans and another species. Not humans teaching a primitive race. Not humans conquering or controlling, but humans and learning from each other as equals. They taught humans about cave systems, about navigating in darkness, about living in harmony with harsh environments. In return, humans taught about science, about other worlds, about the vast network of species that made up the galactic community. Shadow's 4 Bobbies were the first generation to learn to read. They used their claws to operate human computers, quickly mastering the technology. They asked endless questions about stars, about space travel, about aliens who lived on worlds without caves. One day, Shadow's oldest baby, a female the humans called Swift, asked Daniel a question that made him pause. "Can go to space?" she asked, using a mix of sounds and gestures. "Why do you want to go to space?" Daniel asked. "To see other worlds," Swift said. "To meet other people like you came here to meet us." Daniel looked at Shadow. The mother's eyes were gold, filled with pride for her curious child. "Yes," Daniel said, "can go to space. If that's what you want to do, we'll help you learn how." News of the integration reached the Galactic Council chambers on the Central World. Ambassador presented a full report on the progress at Station Horizon. The council members listened in amazement. "This is unprecedented," one council member said. "We've never seen such rapid integration of a newly discovered sentient species." "It's because they weren't newly discovered," explained. "We knew about for years, we just never tried to understand them. One human changed that. Daniel Carter showed us that our classifications were wrong, that our fear was unfounded, that understanding is always possible if we're willing to try." The council voted again, this time to establish a new protocol. Before any species was classified as dangerous, there must be an attempt at peaceful contact. A human would be assigned to each case, using the methods Daniel had pioneered. It became known as the Carter Protocol. Daniel knew nothing about this until Ambassador visited Station Horizon personally to tell him. "You've changed galactic policy," she said. "Your work here will influence how we approach new species for generations." "I just did what felt right," Daniel said. "I saw a scared mother protecting her Bobbies and I helped. Anyone would have done the same." "No," said gently. "Not anyone. Most beings saw a monster. You saw a person. That's a rare gift." That evening there was a celebration in the caves. Hundreds of gathered together with dozens of humans. They shared food, shared stories, shared music. The humans played instruments. They created rhythms with their claws, humming in patterns that created beautiful harmonies. Shadow sat beside Daniel, her 4 Bobbies playing with human children nearby. Stryker sat on Daniel's other side, his massive form somehow conveying contentment. "Look at them," said, sitting down across from Daniel. A month ago, this would have been impossible. Now it's just Tuesday night. Things change fast when fear gets out of the way, Daniel said. Lisa joined them, holding a communication device. I just got word from the council. They want to make Station Horizon the official Human Cultural Exchange Center. We'll get more funding, more resources, more support. And more responsibility, Daniel said. You could refuse, Lisa said. Take a break, you've done more than anyone expected. Daniel looked around the cave, at the humans and sitting together, at the children of both species playing without fear, at Shadow, who had gone from terrified mother to trusted friend. No, he said, this is just the beginning. There's so much more we can learn from each other, so much more we can build together. Shadow made a sound of agreement. She touched her claw gently to Daniel's hand, the gesture that had once terrified him now as familiar as a handshake. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Station Horizon grew. More came from distant cave systems, curious about the humans who had befriended their kind. More humans came from across the galaxy, wanting to learn from the incredible partnership that had formed. The first mixed expedition was organized. 3 and 4 humans went to explore a previously unmapped cave system on the far side of. They discovered chambers filled with crystals that had unique properties, valuable for energy storage. They knew exactly how to navigate the dangerous terrain. The humans knew how to analyze and document the findings. Together, they accomplished what neither species could have done alone. Swift, Shadow's oldest baby, was accepted into the first class to study galactic sciences. She would eventually become the first of her kind to travel to other worlds, an ambassador for her species. But that was in the future. For now, she was still young, still learning, still playing with her siblings and the human children who were her friends. 5 years passed. Station Horizon was no longer a frontier outpost. It was a thriving city, home to thousands of humans and living side by side. The caves below had been mapped, preserved as protected territory for the while allowing limited human access for research and trade. Shadow had grown older. Her scales were beginning to show flecks of silver, but she was still strong, still wise. She now served as the representative to the Galactic Council, traveling to council meetings with human delegates. The first time Shadow entered the council chambers, there was fear. But she stood tall, her eyes a calm blue, and spoke in the language she had learned. A mix of sounds and basic galactic common tongue. We are people, she said. Different from you, but still people. We have families, we have dreams, we have fears, just like you. All we ask is to be treated with the same respect you give each other. The council had listened, and they had learned. Daniel Carter eventually left Station Horizon. There were other worlds, other species that the Galactic Council deemed too dangerous. Species that needed someone willing to look beyond fear and find understanding. Before he left, he stood in the caves one last time with Shadow. You'll be okay without me, he said. Shadow's eyes turned gold. She touched her forehead to his, a gesture of deep affection she had learned from humans. You taught us trust, Shadow said in her careful, accented speech. We will not forget. I didn't teach you anything, Daniel said. You were always capable of trust, I just gave you a reason to use it. He looked at the community that had grown around them, and humans working together, living together, building together. This is what the galaxy should be, Daniel said. Not separate species tolerating each other, but different people building something new together, something better than what any of us could build alone. Shadow hummed softly in agreement. Daniel left the next morning, but the work he started continued. Station Horizon became a model for other stations across the galaxy. The Carter Protocol was used successfully with 3 more species, bringing them peacefully into the galactic community. And in the caves of children grew up playing with human children, never knowing a time when their species were enemies. They grew up in a world where differences were celebrated, not feared, where claws that could kill were instead extended in friendship. Shadow often thought about that first day when Daniel entered the cargo bay. She had been so scared, so desperate to protect her bobbies. She had expected death. Instead, she had found something else, something the galaxy desperately needed. She had found hope. And hope, as it turned out, was the most powerful force in the universe. Stronger than claws, stronger than weapons, stronger than fear. Hope and the courage to trust. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not superior technology, not military might, but the stubborn, beautiful belief that understanding was always possible, that friendship could grow even in the darkest caves, that nothing was truly untamable. Just misunderstood, and waiting for someone brave enough to listen. "I didn't do anything special," Daniel said. "I just listened. That's all any of us need to do. Listen first, judge later." Outside, the stars were coming out, and in the caves below the station, a new chapter was beginning. Not one of fear and violence, but one of understanding and friendship. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Shadow emerged from the cave mouth, covered in dust and blood but alive. Her eyes found Daniel. They were still gold. The survey team member stared at her. She saved us. We would have died, and she saved us." Shadow walked past them all. She went back toward the station, back toward her bobbies. Daniel followed. Behind them, Dax stood very still. His hand was no longer near his weapon. Instead, he was thinking about everything he had just witnessed. "Ambassador needs to see this," he said quietly. Lisa looked at the screen showing Shadow and her 4 bobbies together. The mother was curled around them, her claws retracted, her eyes golden with contentment. "She won't attack now," Daniel said quietly over the comm. "Not as long as her bobbies are safe. She's not a monster, Ambassador. She's just a mother who wanted to protect her family." The screen showed Shadow looking directly at the camera, looking at the humans who had helped her. And for the first time since were discovered, one of them seemed to say thank you. "Urs." "She's listening," Daniel whispered. And in that moment, sitting on the cold floor of a cargo bay with a creature that could kill him in seconds, Daniel Carter smiled, because he saw something that everyone else had missed. He saw hope,